It is time to catch up on everything I've been reading over the past few months, and I got a lot. This is going to be lengthy. So get yourself a snack and or a beverage and let's talk about them. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Nakia. Welcome to my channel. So yes, as I said in the intro, we are here to talk about everything I've read in February and March and April. 3 whole months. This is like other people's regular wrap-ups, but for me, it's 3 months worth. And I'm gonna tell you right now, we got 12 books to talk about, so we just gonna get right into them. Got a couple DNFs as usual, but a lot more to talk about that I've actually read. So let's find out what I've been up to these past few months and get to these books. Okay, first up, let's talk about some books that are kind of soft DNFs and or on hold. One is on hold, not my fault, but they changed the publishing date. And I'm speaking of The Second Stranger by Martin Griffin. I talked about this in my February TBR video. It is also one of my most anticipated books of 2023. But I mean, I get why they changed the date. It makes more sense for it to come out in November because it's a winter thriller book. It takes place in the snow, trapped in the mountains and whatnot. But yeah, it was supposed to come out in February and they changed it to November, so I can't read it. But you better believe it will be read in November because I'm pretty sure I already read a sample of it and I like the writing, so I cannot wait. Got a little ways to go, but it's fine. We can wait for fall. So anyway, that's that one. Next up is a soft DNF. It is Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. Now, I picked this up in February and I actually read like 4 chapters. And then I was just like, I'm not really in the mood for this. I'm sorry. I have turned into a mood reader and I can't help it. So this is also why I don't know if I'll be doing TBRs anymore, because it is freeing to just pick up what I want to read when I want to read it. And then I surprise you all with my wrap-ups. You don't know what you're getting. But I had spoke about this in my February TBR video. And as I said, I read a little bit and I just wasn't really into it for right now. It wasn't grabbing me as much as Amari and the Night Brothers. So we'll see. It is on hold, but I plan to return to it eventually. So let's now get to the books I DNF'd while I was away. Okay, first DNF that occurred in the month of February is one that I was super excited about. Another one that was on my most anticipated books of 2023 list. This one was also included in my February TBR video. That video just did not work well for me. Everything I planned to read in February did not get read, which is why I said I don't think I'll be doing TBRs for a minute. So anyway, I am speaking of Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. Now, this one said it was Knives Out meets Clue and Agatha Christie, a whodunit murder mystery. I love murder mysteries, in case you don't know, in case you're new here. So I was so excited about this book. Now, one thing I will say about this book is that it is very humorous. And if the humor doesn't work for you, it is not going to work. And it didn't work for me. But in case you don't know what it's about, we are following a main character named Ernest Cunningham. He is going on a family reunion at a ski resort, and I'm assuming some people die. Because the synopsis just tells you that everyone in his family has killed someone, including him, and that's about what you know. And as I said, it's a whodunit murder mystery. Now, as I said, the humor just did not work for me. This is the kind of book where they break the fourth wall. He's always talking to the reader and he jumps around a lot like, oh, this is going to happen in chapter 42. I bet you're wondering why such and such did this. That kind of thing just doesn't work for me. I actually have an example of an excerpt. It's not a spoiler, but it's the kind of thing that you get throughout this book. For what it's worth, he seems pretty well healed when he swings a punch at me in chapter 32. Now, again, I just don't like that kind of thing, because then I'm like, I gotta wait to chapter 32 to find out what you talk about, that you swing a punch at somebody. That just does not work for me. And I don't know, the writing it just wasn't for me. When we started off, it was the main character, Ernest. He was driving and he picked up his cousin or something. And then it was some shenanigans with them two. And then he gets to the ski resort. It was a lot of stream of consciousness type of writing with him just, talking about everything, to the type of place he's staying in and commenting on every family member. It just just was not giving me anything as far as the setting. You know, I wanted something a little more comfy, cozy to snuggle up with, and with, like I said, some murder mystery. I was not getting any of that. It was just too much humor, not enough of that for me, and I didn't care about the main character. I really didn't necessarily care for him. So I DNF'd this one at chapter 3. I got about 10% of the way in, and I was just like, it's not for me. But I know a lot of other people are loving this book, and it's just funny to me. But it seems, like I said, where if you like the humor, you'll love the book. If you don't like the humor, it's not going to work for you, because I looked up other people's reviews and they had similar thoughts to me. So for what it's worth, there you have it. Okay, next up we have another one from my February TBR. This is The Fourth Monkey by J.D. Barker, and I was so looking forward to this. I wanted a more gritty thriller. That's what I was trying to do this year. I'm still on the search, but we haven't gotten there yet. So in this one, we are following Detective Sam Porter, where he is one day called to the scene of a bus accident where a man is killed. And while he's searching the body of this victim, he finds a diary, and it has clues that are leading to this four-monkey killer who is a serial killer. And there is a victim out there that is still possibly alive. So Detective Sam Porter is on the search to find this victim. And also, of course, he believes this dead body could be the four-monkey killer. So I was intrigued. You know, I love following detectives as they're solving a crime and looking for a serial killer like Seven. I mentioned this in my TBR video. But I guess I can only deal with certain types of serial killers and certain victims. So let me explain. I was all on board for this one until we got to the part where we found out who the victim was. And I mean, this is just a mild spoiler. It's not really anything major, but if you don't want to hear it, you can skip ahead. I will put a timestamp here. But the victim is a 15-year-old teenage girl, and I was not okay with that. Also, I was like, okay, I don't like that, but let's see. And we do switch to the perspective of the teenage girl, and when we get to her, she is bound naked. So that was a no-no for me. At that point, I put the book down. Before that, we also had chapters from the perspective of the serial killer, even including him talking about killing a cat. You know me. No, no, and no. This was too dark and gritty for me, so I put it aside. That is okay. You can always put something aside if it is too much for you. Like I've said many times, I don't do stuff with children. I don't like when things happen to animals. So these were just all no. And I wish I had known going in. I swear I looked up the trigger warnings, but I didn't see any of those things. But anyway, I got to those points and put it down. And I got to chapter, in case you don't know, I'm always looking down. I have my journal here, so I'm looking to see my notes. So I actually got a little bit of a ways into this. I DNF'd it at page 52, chapter 13. I gave it the old college try. But like I said, it was too much for me. So that covers my DNFs. Not that much. When I got 12 books to talk about, not that many DNFs. So let's get into the books that I actually read while I was away. Now, this next one I actually started in March and it bled into April. I finished it like beginning of April, and it was a buddy read. And I'm speaking of Mickey 7 Antimatter Blues by Edward Ashton. This is the second book in the Mickey 7 series / duology. Right now it's a duology, but who knows? And of course, I have my Mickey 7 back here, which I love. And I buddy read this with Ty from Ty's Book Corner. If you are not following her, check her out. I will have her link below. She reads books similar to me. She reads a lot more fantasy than I do, but we both love mystery thrillers, and we both loved Mickey 7. It was one of our favorite books of 2022. So when I knew the sequel was coming out, I was like, Ty, you want to do a buddy read? So thank goodness for this buddy read, but I will get into that in a second. I purchased this one on my Kindle because I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. If you're new here, I only purchase books once I've read them and I already know that I'm going to love them. But in anticipation of this book, I actually re-listened to Mickey 7 because I just love that book so much, which is why I have a copy back here, and I still enjoyed it just as much. It's still a 4-star book for me. But in case you don't know what it's about, in Mickey 7, we are following a man named Mickey Barnes. He is what they call an expendable, which in this book, we have people who are trying to establish a new colony elsewhere because where they were is no longer habitable. And on this new colony, there are lots of dangers. There are things they have to test out and figure out, trying to see if, the weather is okay and what kind of creatures are out there and all that kind of stuff. So instead of having some type of AI to go do dangerous missions, they figure it's easier to just get a person send them on these dangerous missions. And when they die, they will just clone them and make another one. And so you're expendable. And Mickey 7 is this person on this colony of Niflheim. In Mickey 7, I just loved the humor in this book. I loved Mickey. He's just an ordinary guy who signed up to do this. You find out why, but he has his reasons. And also in Mickey 7, we're constantly dealing with the questions of, is he human? People think he's not because he's been cloned, and they think like what happens to your spirit or your soul or whatever. They have this term called natalists, and that's these people who believe like if you've been cloned, you're just not natural and there's something wrong with you. So there's people who don't like him. There's also people who are fascinated with him, who have a fetish for him. They think it's cool to, sleep with him, get with him. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I just love all the things they brought up in Mickey 7. But in Mickey 7, what happened was, in the beginning of the book, this is also in the synopsis, so it's not a spoiler. He goes on a mission. Something happens where his friend Berto, who's with him, thinks he's going to die. So he leaves Mickey there because, again, that's what he does. He dies and you clone him and keep it moving. Mickey does survive. He goes back to their station where they're staying. And when he gets there, they have already cloned him and Mickey 8 is there. And in this world, one of the rules is you cannot have two multiples at once, which is what they call more than one clone. Because they've had a negative experience in the past where this man made all these clones. He tried to take over the world. So they don't want that happening again. So they try to keep it a secret because neither one of them wants to die. And that is a whole thing. I love that setup. And that is what kept me going because I was just so fascinated by how are these two going to do this? And they constantly were changing places and it was just all that kind of stuff. So I didn't know what we were getting in Antimatter Blues. We did leave off in a point in Mickey 7 where I did want to know what was going to happen, but it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I can't wait to find out. So like I said, I didn't know what we were getting in Antimatter Blues. Now, unfortunately, Antimatter Blues did not have the same tone as Mickey 7. There was no suspense of, what's going to happen throughout this whole book type of thing. In the very beginning, we spent a lot of time just catching up with Mickey and what he's been up to. And, there was even like backstory given of the things we've missed since the last book. Mickey has a girlfriend named Nakia. We were finding out what was going on with them two. And I was a little bit bored. I was like, this is not like Mickey 7. So I am thankful I did this with Ty because she was going a little bit ahead of me and she would be like, it gets a little bit better or it's picking up or I'm still into it. I'm not putting it down yet. But if you want a DNF, I totally understand. And I was like, look here, Ty, I'm just nothing's driving me to pick this up. I was being motivated because I was buddy reading this with her, but I just would be like, I guess I'll read it, sure. I'll pick it up. So because she was reading ahead of me, she did tell me, I think when we get to like chapter 7, it was going to pick up. And then another character comes in that is more entertaining. And she was right. That is what happened. When I got to that point, I was like, okay, I'm a little more interested. Also, I forgot to say, I did do this in tandem with the audiobook because I love the audiobook narrator. When I experienced it again, I did it through audiobook, as I already said. So yeah, that definitely helps. And this other character was very funny to experience through the audiobook. I really enjoyed it. I don't want to give anything away because this is a sequel and also just don't want to spoil anything. But I will say some things reminded me of Project Hail Mary, but I feel like Project Hail Mary did it better. And we did get to a point where we got some action. There's gruesomeness with some, horrific things happening to people. People die. And so it did pick up. Then I was like flipping pages and wanted to know what was going to happen. But this was like middle to end of the book. And then when we got to the ending, it just wrapped up too quickly for my liking. It was just like, okay. They also turned Mickey into this like accidental hero that just did not fit him because that's not what he was like in Mickey 7. And so it was weird for him to be this type of character that he became at the end of the book. And things just wrapped up kind of neatly to where it was like, okay, the ending, I guess it was cute. It's fine. So in the end, I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars. I think I'm going to round it up to 3 for Goodreads, but for here, it's 2.5. If we didn't get some things picking up, I would have DNF'd it or it would have been like a 2 or 1. This is a situation where if they do a third book, I don't think I would run to go read it. I would wait to see what people have to say. I think they can leave it here. It's fine. It could be left where it is. There is a movie that's going to be coming out. I think it's called Mickey 17. If I'm wrong, I'll correct it here on the screen, but it will be with Robert Pattinson. There is a teaser trailer. It's like 2 seconds long. I've watched it. I don't know how I feel about it yet because Robert Pattinson is not who I would have cast for this role, but we shall see what they're going to do. They skipped ahead to 17. They were smart because they can do whatever they want to do. But again, we shall see. So anyway, let's move on to the next book. All right, this next book I picked up was for Old School April. Now, if you did not hear about this, because I sure did, everybody was talking about it on Instagram and even here on YouTube, but Old School April is what it sounds like. It was going through all of April where you just read old nostalgic books from the 80s, I believe 90s. I think they even went up to early 2000s. And so a lot of people were reading, Goosebumps, R.L. Stine, Christopher Pike, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, I think I want to jump in and try to read a book for this. I wasn't sure what, but I was already thinking like a R.L. Stine book. And then one day I was on Goodreads and I was browsing, and a booktube buddy of mine, fellow booktuber Venus from Venus Escapes to Read, she posted about this Goosebumps book that she read, and she gave it like 4 stars, 4 or 5 stars. I don't fully remember, but I was like, you gave this 4 stars. I need to pick this up. And the book that she read and that I also read in April is Goosebumps, Welcome to Dead House. I now know this is the first Goosebumps book. I had no idea when I picked this up. I think when I went to go search this on Goodreads, it said it was Goosebumps #1. I was like, wow, really? I had no idea. But anyway, in this book, we are following 2 siblings, Josh and Amanda, and I believe they're around like 12-ish, something like that. They're like a couple years apart. Of course, in tradition, they are moving to a new house. It is a house that belongs to their uncle. Their dad gets a letter that says he left the house to them, and the dad wants to pursue writing. So he's like, let's go. This is my chance. We can have a house free and clear, and I can focus on writing. Of course, kids don't really want to go. As usual, you know this story. They also have their dog Petey with them. So they get to this house, and this definitely had creepy, spooky, and I was also getting fall vibes because it talked about crunching leaves and stuff like that and cooler weather. So this is definitely one to snuggle up with during fall, but I was fine reading this during the time that I did. But they get to this house, and of course, strange things start happening. The usual. The daughter, Amanda, starts seeing a child in her bedroom window when she's outside. She also sees the curtains blowing, but her window's closed. Strange things like that. Their dog keeps running off and doing weird things that they're not used to. And then they also meet kids in the town who are also strange and exhibit strange behavior. So I really enjoyed the beginning of this book. I read a sample, so that's the reason I picked it up. But the middle part just dragged for me. I'm sorry. And one thing about R.L. Stine, I experienced this when I read The Babysitter. He loves to do fake out scares, and they just start to get annoying for me after a minute. It'll be like, suddenly there was a hand on my shoulder, and that's the end of the chapter. And then the next chapter picks up and she turns around and it's her brother. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of that. He'll start off eerie, creepy. Then you get to the middle, fake out scares, and then you get to the end and then it picks up and it's gruesome and creepy. And you're like, oh, can we get more of this throughout? I mean, I know it's a book for kids, but you add that gruesome stuff in there so you can put some more of that in the middle. And also, like I said, I just get to a point where I already know everything that happens in the middle is just it's not real. So that was my issue. I also got to a point where I just skimmed through stuff because it got to the kids going to play baseball with other kids, and these chapters just were not holding my attention. But then around page 75, their dog runs off and they go to look for him in the cemetery, and that is where things picked up for me. That is when we got back to the atmosphere and the creepiness. And of course, we find out what is going on with this house, possibly this town, these people in this town. Their parents go missing at one point, reminds me of Coraline. And we find out, all of that. And I will say, like I said, from page 75 on, I was rather into it. I enjoyed that part. And as I said, it did get gruesome. I had some things I wrote down, some quotes that I was like, oh, he went there. Skin coming off and skeletons being revealed and stuff like that. I enjoyed all of that. I was even surprised I was in here for a kid's book. But again, the middle part brought it down for me. So in the end, much like Antimatter Blues, I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. For Goodreads, I probably will also bump this up to a 3, but I am glad that I participated in Old School April. I only did one book. I didn't pick a team and none of that stuff. I will try to put information below, but I mean, it's over, so it's kind of no point. But you can still go look at the Instagram. I thought it was cool, the things they had on there, the prompts, all of that good stuff. It was things like, watch old school movies. I do that all the time. So during April, I watched Teen Wolf, The Burbs, Creep Show, just nostalgic things that I watch all the time. It was no special occasion. I watch these on a regular Tuesday. You were also supposed to eat like childhood favorite foods and stuff like that. So I thought it was fun. It was cool. I'm glad I read this book and participated. And let's move on to a 3-star read. All right. Next up, we have book 5 in the Helldiver series, Captives by Nicholas Sansbury Smith. Now, you already know I fell in love with this book, I feel like about a couple years ago now, 2021, I think. My daughter picked this out for me. She did a whole TBR that was picked by her. I will link it here in case you haven't seen it. But yes, I have been hooked on this series since then, especially the audiobook. I have talked about it enough. And I won't go into too much detail because this is the 5th book and I don't want to spoil anything. In this book though, we are dealing with these cannibals, the cazadores, and we have Helldivers and company. Some are held captive there, and then we also have other Helldivers who are up in the airships who are trying to rescue them, and they are also trying to get to this island because they are trying to take it over so they can have a place to live and get out of the sky because it's not safe. These ships don't last forever, which is why we have the Helldivers. Now, in this one, I enjoyed it, but not as much as the other ones I've read so far. This one was more action-packed. I don't feel like it was as character-driven as the other books. We spent a lot of time with these cannibals, which I was not a fan of. You know, they were not my favorites. We didn't get much time in the airship. We also didn't get a lot of the creatures, the sirens, which is what adds the horror element to the story. I mean, you could say the cannibals add a horror element, but it was more war and fighting and that kind of thing. It was fine. It just didn't really grab me like the other books. And I liked the aspects of the sirens. In each book, we got different kind and how creepy they were and gross and all of that. And I didn't get as much of that in this one. Yeah, I just wanted more character driven. So I ended up giving this book 3 stars. As I said before, I think this is my lowest rated one so far. Also, as of right now, this is where I'm going to stop with the series. I know I'm disappointing some of you who have gone further than me or who aren't reading the series. You will probably love it more than me, but I just really liked dealing with the Helldivers going to the surface, like I said, coming up against these creatures and discovering new things. And I looked at what book 6 is about, and it doesn't look like we're going to get much more of that in that one either. So as of right now, this is where I'm going to stop, but we'll see. You never know. I might get bored one month or be looking for something to fill a space, and I may pick up book 6 in audiobook form. But anyway, let's move on to a 3.5 star read. Okay. Next up, we have a book that saved my February reading month. It is also by an author who is quickly becoming one of my new favorite mystery thriller authors. And I'm speaking of The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. Now, it's funny. I remember people reading this book and just, you know, I had it on my list to read. But I mean, The Housemaid, I was kind of like, you know, I'll get to it eventually. But because I read Never Lie by Freida McFadden and I enjoyed that one so much, I think a lot of her books are available on Kindle Unlimited, which is how I picked this one up. So because it was there and I was searching for things in the month of February after all them DNFs, I picked this one up. And again, it saved my month of February. But let me tell you what it's about. In this book, we follow a woman named Millie. She is going to interview to work for the Winchesters, which includes Nina, the mom, Andrew, the dad, and Cecilia, their daughter. Now, we also open up this book with detectives investigating the scene of a crime where there is a dead body. And they are interviewing this person who is a witness, but we don't know who we're dealing with, who this person is. That's all we got. We get a little short chapter and then we jump into the story. Now, as I said, Millie interviews with this family. They seem very, you know, pristine. They're well off, all that good stuff. You know how it goes. And she gets the job. Once she gets there, the woman of the house, Nina, is just horrible to her. She is just so mean to her, making messes, breaking things, making her clean it up. She tells her to do something, and when she does it, she'll say she didn't tell her to do that. A lot of gaslighting, all that stuff. And then her husband, Andrew, just seems like he's just so sweet and a great husband. He's super attractive, and they've said that Nina's not that attractive, and she doesn't understand why he's with her. He's putting up with her crap. Their daughter's also a brat. She's mean to Millie as well. And so I was into it at first, and then I started to get annoyed by Nina and Cecilia just being so mean to Millie. I was just like, I just can't deal with this woman. I'm gonna have to hurt her. I'm gonna have to hurt her. This ain't going well. But then we got to a point where, to me, the book just started to drag a little bit. It was just like the day in and day out of Millie being the housewife and what she's doing, taking Cecilia to school, and, you know, Andrew's home, I'm cooking dinner, blah, blah, blah. She also has a crush on the gardener named Enzo, and we also find out that Millie did go to jail. And of course, we don't know why, but we learn later in the book. This becomes a plot point because Millie does bring up the fact that because she was in jail, she has not slept with anyone in a while, and she has her eyes on this gardener, Enzo. He's supposed to be Italian and fine. That's the way I gather. I didn't picture anyone. I wish it did. But that's the way he was described. And it's supposed to be like all the women in the neighborhood look at him, all that good stuff. So anyway, as I said, I was getting kind of bored, but I was still reading. The writing was still holding my interest because I enjoy Frida McFadden's writing. But if you've read this book, you know. This book is divided into 2 parts. And when we get to close to the second part, we find out that what we thought was going on is not the case. And things get turned on its head, and we get the second part from a different POV. And I cannot say, because I don't want to spoil things, but when we got to part 2, I could not put it down. I was like, what is going on? Oh my goodness. I love the way she flipped the script. And then I think part 3, it wraps up from there. And like I said, I just loved the twist. I love the second perspective that we got and how it's one of those things where you experience a movie or a TV show through one character's eyes, and then you experience it again through someone else's eyes. It's a totally different thing than what you thought. And I just loved it. I loved it. I ate it up. Now, as I said, there was some pining going on. As I already said, a little bit of romance crept in here that was kind of vomit worthy for me. It was another one of those instant romance things that I was just like, are you kidding me? You barely know this dude. But it played into the plot, so I was along for the ride. And as I said, I just enjoyed what Frida McFadden did with this story. So much so that I'm reading book 2 right now. I'm almost done with it, but you will have to stay tuned for my next wrap up to find out my thoughts. But yeah, I would say this book was pretty fast paced. Even the chapters that I said dragged for me, it wasn't the writing. I just got bored with her day-to-day things of the housekeeping, but everything played a part, so it's necessary. I get it now. Again, I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm probably going to round it up to 4 for Goodreads, which for me is great. And as I said, it saved my February reading month. When I got to the end, I was just like, let me tell you about this book. I can't wait to tell the people. Even when I was reading Antimatter Blues, I was going in between Antimatter Blues and book 2 of The Housemaid because I was more into The Housemaid's Secret than Antimatter Blues. And Ty was even like, I need to go read this Housemaid book the way you're talking about it. So as I said, it's my kind of thriller mystery. I don't care if it's perfect. I know people will pick out stuff. I don't care. I love Frida McFadden's writing. I'm following her now. I think I signed up for her newsletters. She has a new fan here, and I can't wait to read another one of her books when I'm done with The Housemaid's Secret. So let's get ready to move on to some of my favorite reads while I was away. Okay, before I get to my highest rated book that I read while I was away, I have some of my childhood favorites. As you know, I've been revisiting my Berenstain Bear books, and I've just been having so much fun with them. I'm going to have to figure out some other ones to read because I love to just pick these up during the month, one sitting, of course, and I love the artwork, and most of the stories are just cute and have some kind of message, and I just love them. So first up, I read The Berenstain Bears and The Sitter. This one is the kind of story, you know, don't judge a book by its cover. Mama Bear and Papa Bear are going to a town meeting and they need to leave Brother Bear and Sister Bear behind. So they hire a sitter, Miss Grizzly, which the name is just funny in itself. And they have seen her around town and think she's just mean and grumpy and they don't want her to come. But of course, as you can guess, she comes and ends up being a lot of fun and they learn not to judge a book by its cover. And this was just cute. I enjoyed it. So this one was first up. And then I also read The Berenstain Bears and The Slumber Party. And this one was also entertaining. It actually had a little bit of I wouldn't say a twist, but it had something that I wasn't expecting at the end. Basically, Sister Bear gets invited to a slumber party. And when she gets there, the child that she's going to stay with, her parents step out for a minute and Mama Bear and Papa Bear don't know anything about this. Oh, I just realized it has a R Us sticker on the back for Toys R Us. Anyway, yeah, so the parents aren't there and the word gets around town that there's a slumber party and all these other kids show up and they ended up just like tearing up the house. They end up calling the local, whoever their cop is, sheriff, I don't fully remember. Let's see. Oh, it's the police. The local police show up and break up the party and everything. And Mama Bear is just upset because how dare you be at this party where the parents weren't home and et cetera, et cetera. But I do like the twist that came towards the end where Papa Bear basically told Mama Bear, you know, you didn't check to make sure the parents were there. And I was like, ooh, he got a point. Yeah, so like I said, Papa Bear was like, look, we didn't do our part either. We didn't call to make sure the parents were going to be there. And so I really like that part because it was not just on the children. Parents are responsible too. We got to take responsibility for our kids. So anyway, I enjoyed this one as well. I liked all the ones I read so far that I read in March and April. I believe that's what I read these. And then finally, this one is just like my childhood. I actually drew a picture that came from this book. I didn't realize it until I was reading it. I was like, oh, this is one of my drawings. This came from this book. So I'm actually going to get a copy of this to have for myself. But this one is the Berenstain Bears in the Messy Room. I mean, this one is pretty much what it sounds like in this book. Mama Bear is frustrated with Brother Bear and Sister Bear for not keeping their room clean. She's just, you know, as I said, having a hard time because she ends up cleaning up behind them. You know, her back hurts and all this stuff. And again, I just realized, just like in that one, Papa Bear comes along and he has to give everybody a talking to and say what we all need to do to make this better. And at the end, they make the room neat and clean and tidy, which just tickles my heart because I love organization. So I even remember how things were organized in this book in the drawings. They have their little boxes where everything is labeled. And I remember I just loved that when I was a kid. I was neat and clean even as a kid. So yeah. And as I said, I will put the drawing up here that I did so you can see. I used to draw Berenstain Bears all the time. And this actually made me want to draw some pictures once again. So yeah, this one was also fun and cute. I just read this one this week and thoroughly enjoyed it. So let's move on to the best book that I read while I was away. You should be able to guess. It's part of a series. And yes, I'm still going. I know some of you have been waiting. Let's see what it is. Last up, we have my 4-star read, and it's so heavy. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This is book 3, and it says on the spine, year 3. I am still enjoying my Harry Potter book. Yes, I am. I may have to put this up on the screen. This sucker's heavy. If you don't know, this is the illustrated edition. I love the illustrations done by Jim Kay. If you don't know, he will not be continuing with the last few books, so I don't know what they're going to do, how the illustrations are going to change. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to pop a picture up here because this is heavy to hold on to. I read this one in the month of March and thoroughly enjoyed it. I also listened to the audiobook at the same time. I love the audiobooks, an audiobook narrator. He also narrated The Night Circus, which I've already read, but I'm going to listen to the audiobook because I love his style so much. But anyway, because this is book 3, I can't say too much, but of course we are going back to Hogwarts, and of course we start off with the Dursleys. In this one, much like in the Chamber of Secrets, Harry gets to Hogwarts in a unique way, and I love the way he gets there. It's actually on the cover of the book, so it's not really a spoiler, but he gets on the night bus, and I really enjoyed everything that went along with that. And that actually sets the tone for this book. This one is darker. We get some darker creatures, some darker magic. Like I said, I don't want to spoil things, but I will say, I know a lot of you said this one was your favorite book. It was not for me. I still enjoyed it. As I said, 4 stars, but for me so far, Chamber of Secrets was my favorite because I just loved Parcel Tongue and all of the stuff with the spiders and all of that. But for this one, I do understand why a lot of you would say this is your favorite book. I think the part that was supposed to be a twist was not a twist for me because the character's name revealed what the twist was going to be for me, because I'm a huge fan of this type of creature. I don't want to say too much. I'm already saying too much, but I did enjoy many parts of this book. Hagrid was more in it, and he's my favorite, as you know. And so I just love Hagrid. Love him so much. Anyway, yeah, we got some time travel and, like I said, things I was not expecting in this book. And as I already said, it is darker. And as usual, somebody's out to get Harry. I'm just like, why? Poor Harry. Poor Harry. Anyway, as he goes to Hogwarts, again, everybody has to keep an eye on him because, as I said, they're afraid somebody's going to come get him. So, and there's another mystery, as we know. Who is this prisoner of Azkaban? All that good stuff. So I enjoyed it as much as the other books. Well, the other one's a little bit more, but I still enjoyed it. And I am looking forward to book 4. I will be reading that as soon as the audiobook becomes available in my library. There are long holds for these audiobooks, so I'm waiting. But anyway, you can stay tuned for that. Let's wrap this up. I feel like I've been talking forever. All right, so that wraps up everything that I read while I was away. And it's funny because this is 12 books and this is normally other people's monthly wrap up, but for me, this was months long. But I enjoyed just reading what I wanted to read and not really worrying about like, oh, I told them I was going to read this, so I have to read this. It was just whatever I wanted to pick up, I picked up, and that is what I'm going to continue to do going forward. So you will just have to stay tuned to my wrap-ups and keep up with me on Instagram and Goodreads. I'm always updating Goodreads, so you will know what I'm reading. My Goodreads is linked below, and all of these books will be linked below as well. Yes, so I think that is it for this video. So let's see, what emoji shall you leave for this video? I mean, for the Housemaid and for Harry Potter, let's go ahead and leave a broom for cleaning and for flying. I think that fits for this video. So you can leave me that emoji to let me know that you made it this far in the video and or show me some love. And if you just don't have anything else to say, you could always just leave me the emoji. I appreciate it all. So I think I have talked enough. I'm tired, I'm hungry. So that is it for this video. So until next time, snuggle up in your hideaway with a good book, unplug as much as possible, be kind to all kind, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.